Welcome back to Joe Stunner Boxing. We often hear the phrase Crossroads fight. I mean, there was one on last night between Jason Rosario and Jarrett Hurd, and it finished in a split draw. But it's normally that was considered a crossroads fight because you've got two guys who've got more wins, more losses recently than they have wins. You put them in together, the winner stays on, and the loser kind of has nowhere to go. Like I say, this was a split draw last night between Hurd and Rosario, so you could argue they could have a rematch maybe and prolong their career slightly longer. But the losers certainly won't get a sniff at any kind of middleweight titles, so you would think. Now, there's another similar thing which shouldn't be confused with the Crossroads fight, and that is the cash-out fight. The cash-out fight. And there are a couple of fights coming up involving matchroom fighters that to me smack of real cash-outs. And the first one I want to talk about is the fight that's on the Riyadh card between Shakur Stevenson and Joe Cordina. Now, Stevenson is a free agent. He left Top Rank, decided not to renew his contract with them. I think they offered him, what they offered him, $3 or $5 million a fight. He weren't interested or something like that. I don't know. But anyway, decided to leave. He thinks I'm worth more than that. Stevenson there's no doubt he's a very, very talented guy. Technically very good, very fast, very precise, hit and don't be hit, all that. Seems to have pretty good stamina. He's 27 years old, so if he's not in his prime, he's getting close to it. Southpaw, so he's a handful. You add that into the mix, he's a real handful for anyone. But he's a free agent. And if there's one person who likes a free agent of talent, it's EDDIE Hearn. So EDDIE Hearn, in order to perhaps, lull Stevenson over to his rocks, like a siren playing the harp, what does he do? Well, he has a word in people's ears, namely our friend the Excellent Turkey, and gets Stevenson onto the Riyadh card. But what does he do? He puts one of his long-term promotional charges, Joe Cordina, in with Stevenson. And Cordina was 32. So he's not in his, or you could say wouldn't say he's past it, quite the contrary. He has a 17 wins with 9 KOs, one defeat record. Nothing wrong with that. He's a 2-time IBF champ. But 32, you would say is unless he wins this fight against Stevenson, his options might be quite limited. And this smacks to me of Hearn trying to woo Stevenson by kind of offering up Cordina as almost like a sacrificial lamb, as opposed to being a crossroads fight, which got mentioned earlier. This is more of a cash out. And then if Cordina was to surprise everyone and beat Stevenson, Hearn still got him. But it does smack of something that is quite snidey, quite sneaky on behalf of Hearn. And Hearn will say, well, Cordina's getting a great paycheck and blah, blah, blah. But if you've got a guy whose last fight was his only defeat, a stoppage defeat, this one to a 35-year-old Anthony Kattar, normally fighters are brought back, aren't they? Or they're given maybe a little 10-round runaround or maybe a title shot against a lesser champ. What they're not done is slung in, given a world title shot against someone that no one thinks they can beat. And maybe even they don't believe they can beat him. I mean, if you were going to put anyone in with Shakur Stevenson, and I know he is not considered very entertaining. I don't think he's very entertaining. I think his last 2 fights have been real snooze fests. He's very, very good technically, and he's got sound skills, good engine, all the rest of it. But you can sort of admire him more than loving him. You know what I mean? If you're going to put someone in with him, you don't want them coming off an eighth round stoppage to Anthony Kattar, do you? You want them to be, at the zenith of their powers, and emotionally, confidence-wise, their psyche's got, everything's got to be in place, to have a chance of beating Stevenson, because Stevenson's so damn good. Whether you think he's entertaining or not is another matter, But no, this smacks of cash out to me. This smacks of serving up Cordina for Stevenson in the hope that Stevenson will eventually sign with you. And like I say, if Stevenson was to lose and Cordina was to win, he'd be right back in the mix, obviously. But you've still got control of him. You'll have control of that WBC belt. So it's kind of win-win for Hearn. Definitely, a big loss, perhaps a world championship fight-ending loss for Joe Cordina, who, if he does let's say he gets trounced and stopped early, or even if he loses every round against Stevenson, he'll no longer be a player in the lightweight division. He's considered damaged goods at the moment. But he'll certainly be considered, nowhere near the top, 5 anymore. 2 back-to-back losses. Now, the other fight, which I think is slightly less of a cash-out, you could argue this is more of a Crossroads fight, but I still think it is a cash-out fight, is going to take place at Wembley Stadium on the undercard of the Dubois versus AJ fight, and that is Anthony Kattar against Josh Warrington. This for the IBF super featherweight title. Now, I have no idea what the hell Warrington is doing in a world title fight at a weight he's never fought at before. He has lost his last 2 fights. He's lost to Lee Wood on 7th round stoppage, regardless of the controversy of the ending. That was October last year. And then back in 2022, in December of 2022, he lost to Luis Alberto Lopez, and that was a majority decision over in Leeds. The Lee Wood fight was at the Sheffield Arena. If you look at his previous 3 fights, he did stop, the ancient Kiko Martinez in 7 rounds to pick up the IBF title again. Prior to that, he had a technical draw in 2 rounds with Maurizio Lara. We're going back to 2021 now. And then prior to that, he was knocked out by Maurizio Lara in 9 rounds. So in his last 5 fights, he is 1 win, 1 draw, and 3 defeats, 2 by knockout. And yet somehow he finds himself with an IBF super featherweight title shot. He's never been a super featherweight. Now, okay, Hearn has got to get his guys the maximum amount of money for, again, the least amount of risk. And this is certainly not on the level of risk that Cordina finds himself in with against Stevenson. I mean, that really is a horrendous piece of matchmaking if you're looking at it from Cordina's point of view. This is more winnable. I mean, when all is said and done, even though his last 5 fights, there's only 1 win. Warrington, even though he's jumping up a weight, 31 wins with 8 KOs, 3 defeats, 2 by stoppage and 1 draw. Kattar is not unbeatable. In fact, he has been beaten. He's also got 8 KOs in 22 wins with the 1 defeat. And the defeat was to Martin J. Ward back in 2017. That was a unanimous decision. He didn't fight in 2018. It was a stop-start career. Didn't fight in 2020, but got his chance against Cordina, and Christ, did he take it. But he is 35 years old. So there is you could make a case for Warrington winning that title. You can make a case. But again, if you're coming off 2 defeats, 3 in your last 5 fights, do you really want your promoter giving you that, last chance saloon? It's kind of a cash-out fight, really. I think it is a cash-out fight, really. And again, if Warrington was to pull off the upset, Hearn can say, "Well, we got ourselves an IBF title," just like if Cordina beats Shakur. I mean, he will, but hey, so it's kind of win-win for Hearn. But again, win, big loss. Small chance of a win, massive chance of a loss. It's one of those situations for the fighter. So this does beg the question, we hear a lot about loyalty in boxing and fighters who, are they loyal to their promoter? Is the promoter loyal to the fighter? And, look, this is a business. And if once you cease to be financially viable, in the sense that the promoter's going to, maybe take a loss for certain fights to promote you. And once you get to a certain age, because you know, Cordina's 32, Warrington's now 33, and once it gets to the point where the investment's not worth it, and you really want to, you really think, well, I can't really do anything, can't really do much more with this guy. I'll tell you what, I'll just throw him in and hope he can pull off an upset. Once you get to that stage, loyalty goes out the window, because promoters are money men. Eddie Hearn's a money man. He's all about numbers, all right? Same as, you know, Don King was, same as Frank Warren is, same as Bob Arum still is. You know, all these guys, they're about money. You know, promoters, managers, you know, you may be on very friendly terms with them, but ultimately they're your professional colleagues. They're people you're working with. They don't owe you anything, and you don't owe them anything, and that includes loyalty. So you have to really say to yourself, I've got one career, and as the old cliche goes, athletes die two deaths. They die the athletic one, where they can't do what they used to do anymore, and then they die the obvious mortal death. But between those two deaths is a whole chunk of your life that you're going to have to get through, and that means making as much money as you can and getting as much of a legacy as you can, you know. So, and it may be that both Warrington and Cordina are being very, very well paid. You would imagine they would be. So that's a good thing. After all, this is our friend the Excellent Turkey's gig, as usual. But even so, let's not be under any illusions about this. Once you cease to be of financial worth, financial investment to a promoter, they will throw you under the bus, cash you out, maybe. You know, you don't owe anyone anything. You know, promoters don't very, very rarely show loyalty beyond the bottom line, which is money, to any fighter, and a fighter shouldn't necessarily show any loyalty to a promoter. Look at Stevenson, look at Shakur Stevenson. You know, he was with Bob Arum, he was with Top Rank, they offered him an extension. No, thank you, I can make more money elsewhere. So off he goes. You can't really complain about that. You know, it's a business, and you've got a limited amount of time span within your career to earn as much money as possible. So those are my thoughts on those two fights. Let me know what you think, whether you agree with me or not. And yeah, the whole subject of cash out fights, or maybe cash out fights versus Crossroads fights, there is a difference, I think. Let me know what you think. Comments below. Please, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit the like button as well. Spread the word about Joe Stunner Boxing. Really appreciate all your support and your time watching these videos, and I will speak to you soon. Bye for now.